Director of Public Prosecutions asked to handle complaints against Paul Chan. An urgent call for political reform consultations from the Catholic Church. And in Spain, the deadliest rail accident in 4 decades.
Good evening. The Director of Public Prosecutions will handle public complaints made to the ICAC involving Secretary for Development Paul Chan. The Secretary for Justice said this is to avoid any possible perception of bias or improper influence. Earlier, political parties filed complaints after it was revealed Chan's family owns land in the Northeast New Territories development areas, which the parties say is a potential conflict of interest. Meanwhile, there were more calls from lawmakers today for Chan to step down. Legislators are expected to vote tomorrow on a motion calling for the secretary to resign. Rani Samtani reports.
Secretary for Development Paul Chan was hoarded by protesters and media as he entered the LegCo building for the development panel meeting this morning. The meeting, which was to discuss the Northeast New Territories development areas, was overshadowed by allegations of Chan's conflict of interest over land in the development areas. A number of legislators called on him to step down.
The Civic Party will continue to pursue Mr. Paul Chan's resignation. Today he said he would not resign, but he did not give any reason. I mean, it all happened because the media discovered he held lands in the area, and his family definitely stood to gain. And even if he's going to sell, his family is going to sell, his family is going to gain.
Let me reiterate that at present, my wife and my children in Northeast NT don't have any land interests.
Even though the development chief continued to defend his actions, the panel on development has agreed to reconvene tomorrow morning to further deliberate and vote on whether to pass the motion calling for Paul Chan to step down.
It was quite clear that the decision made by the secretary affects public policy and also affecting the use of public funds. And because of his conflict of interest and his lack of declaration in the past, create the situation that the public don't have trust on him for such a major important decision. And if there is no public confidence on the secretary, it will make the implementation of the policy and also the development absolutely impossible. This is why we urge the secretary to step down to ensure that the government's policy can be carried accordingly.
The Civil Human Rights Front announced today it will be holding a rally on Sunday calling for both Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying and the Development Secretary to step down from their positions. They expect 3,000 people to join their protest march from Causeway Bay to the central government offices. Rani Samtani, TVB News.
And Secretary for Education Eddie Ng is dealing with his own controversy as he admitted he had failed to declare his interest in a consulting firm after joining the government. Ng said the omission was simply an oversight. He explained the company, Human Capital Management, ceased operation 3 months before he took office. He also said he was in the process of closing down the company after he became the education chief. This comes as the government implements a revised declaration of interest for top officials.
The Hong Kong Catholic Diocese has made an urgent appeal to the government to launch political reform consultations. It says civil disobedience may be justified if the aspirations of Hong Kong people are not fulfilled. Joel Da Silva reports.
An urgent call for earnest dialogue and responsible action. In a statement released today, the Hong Kong Catholic Diocese says it sees a democratic form of government as essential for the well-being of Hong Kong's society and calls upon Leung Chun-ying's administration to begin formal consultations without further delay. As for the Occupy Central movement, the church says that when all avenues for citizens to fulfill their aspirations have been blocked, exceptional situations can arise in which civil disobedience within certain limits is justified. The statement also goes on to clarify, saying such actions should remain non-violent and participants should continue to make every effort at rational dialogue. The statement also fleshes out the Church's vision of universal suffrage in Hong Kong. It says the chief executive should be directly elected by universal suffrage in 2017 on a one-person, one-vote basis. And it adds that by 2020, all LegCo members should be directly elected by universal suffrage and functional constituencies should be abolished. This afternoon, the diocese explained why it decided to intervene in the matter.
The Church is serving the society. The Church is helping every individual, so every individual's well-being concern is also the Church's concern.
In replying to reporters' questions today, Young said students should not take part in Occupy Central protests as large-scale demonstrations in the past often resulted in unhappy endings. In a handover anniversary event earlier this month, Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying pledged to launch a consultation on political reform at an appropriate juncture. João da Silva, TVB News.
Disgraced mainland politician Bo Xilai was charged today with accepting bribes, embezzlement and abuse of power. His indictment was delivered to the Jinan City Intermediate People's Court. Bo was one of the country's most flamboyant and high-profile politicians, widely tipped to be promoted to the Communist Party's elite inner circle. The indictment paves the way for a trial 16 months after he dropped out of sight following the mainland's biggest scandal in years. According to the report, the former party chief of Chongqing is accused of taking bribes in extremely large amounts. He's also accused of using his office to gain benefits for others. Bo was expelled from the party amid accusations of corruption, sordid sexual affairs and abetting the cover-up of a murder by his wife, Gu Kailai. Gu is currently serving life in prison for the murder of British businessman Neil Haywood.
Officials say the number dead in Spain's worst rail disaster in 40 years has risen to 78 after a train jumped the tracks and derailed last night. More than 140 others were injured in the disaster, which authorities say was an accident and not the result of sabotage or terrorism. Tony Sabine reports.
This video, taken just moments after one of Spain's worst rail disasters in decades, shows the horror that rescue workers were confronted with when they arrived at the scene. Carriages on fire, twisted beyond recognition, lay strewn across the tracks. Rescue workers searching frantically among the tangled mess of metal, trying to reach those trapped inside. Bodies covered in blankets lay next to the overturned carriages as smoke billowed from the wreckage. As ambulances rushed the injured to nearby hospitals, friends and relatives waited anxiously for news of their loved ones. Officials say they're working on the assumption it was an accident rather than the result of foul play. They believe the train, which was carrying 218 passengers at the time, jumped the tracks on a curvy stretch just before arriving in the northwestern city of Santiago de Compostela. It was on the express route between Madrid and the shipbuilding city of Ferrol on the Galician coast. One of Spain's leading newspapers cited sources close to the investigation, indicating the train was travelling at over twice the speed limit on a sharp curve. Whatever the reason for the crash, Spain's Prime Minister has promised a thorough investigation, while the national rail operator and track operating company have promised to work with investigators. Meanwhile, rescuers were hard at work, spending the night searching through toppled and smashed cars. Officials say it's possible that more bodies would be found. It's Spain's deadliest train accident since 1972, when a train collided with a bus in the country's southwest, killing 86 people and injuring 112. Tony Sabine, TVB News.
And former U.S. spy agency contractor Edward Snowden's hopes of leaving the transit zone of a Moscow airport and formally entering Russia were dashed. That's because, contrary to some press reports yesterday, he has yet to receive temporary asylum from Russian authorities. Snowden initially thought he would be able to finally leave the transit lounge of the Moscow airport he's been in for the last month. But Anatoly Kucherena, a lawyer who's been helping him, said Snowden didn't get through passport control because he didn't have the pass he needed. It's not clear whether there was any last-minute political intervention. Meanwhile, in the U.S., where Snowden is wanted for revealing spy agency surveillance secrets, the House of Representatives approved the continuation of that surveillance. But Wednesday's hotly debated vote is unlikely to be the final word on government intrusion in the name of defense of the country. Egypt's military chief has called for mass rallies tomorrow to support the interim administration as it tries to build a new government. Supporters of ousted President Mohamed Morsi have been protesting for days across Egypt in their tens of thousands. One of the generals who helped overthrow Morsi earlier this month says he wants an end to the chaos and violence which saw more people killed this week. Despite calls for unity and appeals to get behind the interim government, Morsi's supporters have promised more demonstrations tomorrow.
Indian police have arrested the headmistress of a school where 23 children died after eating a meal laced with pesticide. The woman, who'd been missing for a week, was detained by police while she was on her way to court to surrender. The children fell ill within minutes of eating their school meal. It's unclear who contaminated the meal with pesticide, and authorities hope the headmistress will help clear that up. It was one of India's deadliest food poisoning cases in years. In Brazil, Pope Francis called on the young to build a more just and united world. Giving his first sermon outside Italy since ascending to the papacy in March, the Pope focused on the topic of the week, Catholic youth. An estimated 150,000 braved chilly, wet weather to attend the service at the Aparecida shrine to the west of Rio de Janeiro. The Pope's visit comes during the week-long World Youth Day festivities. The events are expected to attract more than 1 million people from around the world. And still to come in the news. The naming of Britain's Little Prince. A former US president shaves his head in support of a boy with leukemia. And a Hong Kong contestant named the world's best Santa.
Welcome back. Britain's Prince William and his wife Kate have chosen to name their new baby George Alexander Louis. The announcement was relatively quick by royal standards. Alan Booknia reports.
The announcement came over Twitter. All three names were among the favorites listed by British bookmakers and are steeped in royal tradition. 6 previous kings were named George, including the father of Queen Elizabeth. Alexander is the name of 3 medieval Scottish kings and the male version of Alexandra, one of the Queen's middle names. And Louis is one of William's middle names and was the given name of Prince Charles' mentor and great-uncle, Louis Mountbatten, who was assassinated by IRA guerrillas in 1979. The name announcement is short by royal standards and comes just 2 days after the baby was born. It took a month for the name of Prince Charles to be announced and a week for Prince William. In Kate Middleton's hometown of Bucklebury, there was delight at the choice of names.
Fantastic. There's a lot of history behind it, and the middle name, Alexander, is really intriguing as well. So great, modern, and yet with history.
Outside Kensington Palace, the home of William and Kate, royal watchers also gave their approval.
I like Alexander. I think that's a lovely name. I think that was one of the names that was to be expected, wasn't it?
Yeah. Now that Kate and William have chosen a name, they're expected to soon choose a photographer for their baby's first official portrait. Alan Booknia, TVB News.
U.S. President Barack Obama says he will name Caroline Kennedy, daughter of the late President John F. Kennedy, as ambassador to Japan. Kennedy is currently president of her father's Library Foundation and chairs an advisory committee at Harvard University. Active in the Democratic Party, she was an early supporter of Obama when he first bid for the presidency in 2008. An endorsement from a member of one of America's most prominent political dynasties was a key boost to Obama as he began his campaign. Her appointment is subject to Senate approval. Former U.S. President George H.W. Bush has shaved his head in solidarity with a 2-year-old boy who lost his hair from leukemia treatment. The boy, called Patrick, is the son of a Secret Service bodyguard. A statement issued by the Bush office says the 89-year-old former president acted after learning that members of his Secret Service detail shaved their heads in a show of support for Patrick. The Bushes lost their second child, 4-year-old Robin, to leukemia 60 years ago.
Health Director Constance Chan says tests done on people who had close contact with 2 men who fell ill with Japanese encephalitis have tested negative for the virus. But she didn't rule out the possibility of more infections. Vicky Kong reports.
The 2 Tin Shui Wai residents who contracted Japanese encephalitis earlier this month remain at Tuen Mun Hospital. Health authorities feared that a 13-year-old boy had also come down with the disease. But later, tests indicated he was not suffering from it. 49 relatives and neighbors of the confirmed cases have also tested negative for the disease. But health authorities are not letting down the guard.
We have 2 confirmed cases within a relatively short period, so we are concerned. We have sporadic cases ranging from 0 case to perhaps up to maximum 5 cases per year. So in terms of severity, it's not very common in Hong Kong.
She stressed the government has stepped up anti-mosquito measures to prevent the spread of Japanese encephalitis. Chan also advised people to wear long-sleeve clothes, use insect repellent, and stop mosquitoes from breeding in flower pots. But apart from that, nothing more.
The expert opinion is that Japanese encephalitis vaccination is not recommended for the general population.
Chan said a handful of people developed serious complications afterwards. Still, for those who plan on a long visit to areas where cases are reported, Chen suggested you should consult a doctor to see if vaccination is necessary. If a new case is found, the Center for Health Protection will take and test blood samples of family members related to those diagnosed in order to keep an eye on the spread of Japanese encephalitis in Hong Kong. Vicky Kong, TVB News.
A group of foreign domestic workers and their supporters have asked for the government to end regulations that force workers to live with their employers. The Mission for Migrant Workers says the living conditions for some workers who live with their employers are bad. The group believes amending current live-in laws will free up privacy for both employers and employees. The Immigration Department says lifting the law will affect the job market for local domestic helpers who are not required to live with employers. But the Hong Kong Confederation of Trade Unions says it's unfair for the government to protect job opportunities of local workers by ripping off the rights of foreign workers. The Hong Kong Golf Association today waded into the government's Northeast New Territories development plan. The association says it is disappointed with reports that the Fanling Golf Course could be included in the development plan, leading to a change in land usage. It says golf clubs in Hong Kong provide facilities not only for their members, but also for the general golfing public, including overseas visitors. With golf's newly acquired status as an Olympic sport, the association says Hong Kong golfers need facilities to play and practice and to compete. Noting that the Fanling Golf Course has been home to the Hong Kong Open since 1959, the association says logistics are crucial in staging an international event of this magnitude, and Fanling has the space to ensure the event is smoothly run. All right, Chris, over to you for sports.
Yeah, we're going to stick with some local sports, too. New Manchester City boss Manuel Pellegrini was on hand to watch his team beat South China 1-0 on a rainy night at the Hong Kong Stadium. Pellegrini recently rejoined the English Premier League club in Hong Kong following the death of his mother. Edin Dzeko scored midway through the first half. Manchester City will play Sunderland in Saturday's Asia Trophy final. The Black Cats defeated Tottenham Hotspurs 3-1. Former Manchester United player Wes Brown was man of the match. He found the net in the 63rd minute on a header. Meanwhile, Pep Guardiola was a winner in his first game in charge of Bayern Munich. And the victory was even sweeter as it came against his former club, Barcelona. Philipp Lahm and Mario Mandzukic were the goal scorers in Munich. The final was 2-0. Lionel Messi, that is, started the friendly, but Xavi, Andres Iniesta, and Neymar were not in the lineup. At the Gold Cup, the United States continued its impressive run, notching a 9th straight win. The Americans advanced to the final after beating Honduras 3-1 in Texas. Jameson Wong has highlights.
Back to the future for the Americans as Landon Donovan scored twice and set up another to lead the United States over Honduras 3-1. The 31-year-old has racked up 5 goals and 7 assists in the tournament. The U.S. into their 5th straight Gold Cup final. Current U.S. coach Jurgen Klinsmann didn't even mind a red card and ejection for slamming the ball into the ground.
The way the team played was really fun to watch.
Meanwhile, Panama beat defending champions Mexico 2-1. Roman Torres with the game winner at the hour. The championship match will be a replay of the 2005 finals, won by the Americans on penalty kicks. Jameson Wong, TVB News.
And former 2-time World Footballer of the Year, Ronaldinho, is a champion again. Brazil's Atlético Mineiro defeated Paraguay's Olimpia in a penalty shootout to lift the Copa Libertadores trophy. It was Mineiro's first title in the Continental Club competition. Ronaldinho returned to Brazil in 2011. He won the Champions League and La Liga while in Spain with Barcelona.
And finally for tonight, Christmas may be months away, but this year's celebration will be a special one for one local Santa Claus. Hong Kong's Santa Johnny was chosen as the world's best Santa at the annual Santa Claus Congress in Denmark. He was selected from among 130 candidates who came from countries such as Japan, Spain, and the United States. They gathered at the Bakken Amusement Park for the 3-day event, where besides picking the best among themselves, they also discussed vital issues such as Christmas presents, taxes, and different chimney sizes. Well, let's hope we get presents from him this year.
I'm sure I saw the Wizard of Oz Tin Man in there somewhere. Didn't I see that?
I think I spotted that too. Interesting Santa dressed up there. Well, that's the news for tonight. Thanks for watching.
Good night.
Good evening. The weather today was cloudy with occasional rain and a few squally thunderstorms. And as tonight's situation chart shows, a broad trough of low pressure is bringing unsettled weather to the northern part of the South China Sea and the coast of Guangdong. Today's temperatures ranged from 24.6 to 26.9 degrees, and the relative humidity was between 93 and 99%. Moderate south to southeasterly winds. The current temperature is now 26 degrees Celsius with the relative humidity standing at 95%. 49.5 millimeters of rainfall has been recorded since midnight. So Freddie, how's the weather tomorrow? It will be cloudy with occasional rain and a few squally thunderstorms. Rain will be heavy at times. Temperatures will range between 25 and 28 degrees. Rain will ease off gradually in the next couple of days. It will be brighter early next week. Tomorrow's API is forecast at 20 to 85, and the pollution level will range from low to high. And the maximum UV intensity forecast for tomorrow will be about 4. And here's the latest global weather update. Cloudy in Shanghai, showers in Taipei and Xiamen. Rain in Guangzhou, thunderstorms in Macau, showers in Chengdu. Showers in Beijing, cloudy in Seoul and Tokyo. Thunderstorms in Bangkok, rain in Ho Chi Minh City and Manila. Bright in Kuala Lumpur, thunderstorms in Singapore, showers in Jakarta. Thunderstorms in New Delhi, showers in Karachi, rain in Mumbai. Sunny in Cairo. Showers in Brisbane, sunny in Sydney, bright in Melbourne and Auckland. Cloudy in Toronto. Sunny in Vancouver and San Francisco. Bright in London, thunderstorms in Amsterdam, sunny in Zurich. And that's the weather. Have a lovely evening.